Hi everyone, my name is Weigela. I'm a teacher here at the Bread Ahead Bakery School. This month on our Doughnut Club, we are going to be doing a classic take on the apple crumble and turning it into a donut. As apples are in season, it's the perfect time for this recipe. If you'd like to bake these donuts with us, please follow the link in the comments for the full recipe on our website. Okay, we are now ready to prepare our apple filling for the donuts. First of all, you need to get your oven on 160 degrees and you will need a few bits to help you prepare the apples. You will need a chopping board, a peeler, and also a knife. We're going to be peeling the apples, coring them, and then dicing them into about 1.5 centimeter cubes, putting those in the oven on a tray along with the water and the lemon juice, covering it with foil and baking for about half an hour. We will then remove that from the oven, add the light brown sugar, and it goes right back in. So we're going to start by peeling our apples. We are using Granny Smith apples for this, nice and tart. Okay, now that we have peeled our apples, we're going to be halving them, cutting them into quarters, and then we're just going to simply remove that middle bit, the core. This is probably the easiest and quickest way to do that. If you do have a corer, please use it, that's also fine. But if you don't, this is probably the next best option. So, although I'm a baker, I have worked in kitchens and I've had my fair share of hotel jobs, meaning fruit plates. So, I do love cutting up fruit and I'm very quick at it, so don't compare yourself to me. It's just from doing hundreds and hundreds of fruit plates. All right, we've now got our apples cored. Okay, we now have our apples cored. We're going to be cutting them up. So you do want to cut them into quite significant chunks. You don't want them to be too small. If you finely dice the apples, they're just going to disintegrate into nothing in the oven. So you do want to, depending on the size of the piece, you might need to cut it in half or cut it in 3. So I'm going to cut this one in half and then cut it into 4 so you can kind of tell the size of the chunks. It's going to be in the oven for about an hour, so you do want it to hold its shape and not just turn into mush. On a smaller piece, I might suggest cutting it, into 3 rather than 4. It honestly does just depend on the size of your apples, and all apples are different, so it's not really a one-size-fits-all thing. And you do want to cut them at the same size so that they cook down at the same rate. If you have much larger pieces and loads of small pieces, they are not going to quite cook the same. Okay, we're done with our prep. We will now grab our water and lemon and a tray. We can just spread them on the tray and pour over the mix of water and lemon juice. This will help cook the apples, and the lemon juice will also add a nice tang. Lastly, we will add the foil. So we will now pop this in the oven and set a timer for half an hour. We're now ready to check on the apples. So what we're going to be doing now is adding the brown sugar, giving it a stir, and it's going back in. The apples are starting to soften up nicely. It's smelling very good in here. We're going back in the oven for another half an hour. We're now going to get the apples out the oven. We will have to wait for these to cool before we start the next steps, so we'll see you back shortly. While your apples are cooling, we're now going to move on to the crumble. So we're going to be needing for this our plain flour, rolled oats, some caster sugar, cinnamon, and cold butter from the fridge. You will have to preheat your oven to 180 degrees fan. So for this recipe, we will be adding the dry ingredients to a bowl and rubbing the butter through. It's always good practice to cube your butter before you start. For crumble, we always want to make sure we are using a cold butter. If your butter is warm or at room temperature, it will likely melt and your crumble will not be very good. You want to keep that butter nice and cold and only really take it out right before you need it. So you will start rubbing through the butter. Anytime you come across a larger chunk, you're going to squash it down. Make sure you go underneath and you rotate so that you don't leave a large part of floury bits at the bottom. So you want to kind of keep rotating. If at any point you feel like the butter has melted, you can always pop it in the fridge for a few minutes and then start again. Okay, I'm now just going to double check that I haven't missed any butter, and I'll just rub any through that I've missed. So the texture we're looking for is kind of like a coarse sand. Because of the oats as well, there's quite a bit of texture. And the feeling of this crumble in my hands, it's still slightly chilled from the butter, it's not warm. I'm now going to be popping this onto a lined baking tray and then getting that in the oven. Just spread that out. And we will give this a stir every kind of 10 minutes just to make sure that the edges don't get brown and the center is a bit lighter. We'll mix it around just to make sure it's evenly baked. So the crumble is going in the oven now, and we will check on it every 10 minutes, give it a little stir. It should be baked in about 20 to 30 minutes. We'll check at 20 if it does need more time. We're now just going to give that crumble a little stir and pop it back in the oven. So you want to move it around and then spread it to the sides of the tray again. And back we go. We're now going to check on our crumble. So it's been in there for 20 minutes and I would say we are ready. So I won't be putting it back for any longer. However, at home, if you feel it's not as dark as this or slightly underbaked, you can pop it in for another couple of minutes. Just depends on your oven. We will set this aside to cool and use it later. So we have to blend up our lovely jammy apples before we can use it in our curd. And we want it to be a nice puree. So I have with me a blender. You can use any kind of blender at home, as long as it does the job. Might have to do this in 2 batches, considering I've got quite a few apples. Let's start with that. Okay, I'll just add the remaining. You want to try and get a lot of this caramelized applesauce from the tray. So using a spatula, try and scoop up a lot of that. There is so much flavor in these juices. Oops. Okay, let's finish up. May have to just move it around to get the last few apples to the bottom. We are now going to begin with our apple curd. I have my puree. I've already weighed up the rest of the ingredients. For this recipe, we need eggs, caster sugar, we have a little bit of vanilla extract, ground cinnamon, and of course unsalted butter. Next to me, I have a hob with a pot. There's a little bit of water in the base of the pot, and then I've got a heat-proof bowl on top and a whisk. Last but not least, we will require a thermometer for this recipe as we need to check the temperature of the curd. So what I will do is turn the hob on, add my ingredients, start whisking, and continuously check the temperature. We are aiming for about 76 degrees on this curd. If you don't have a thermometer to hand and you would like to check the readiness of your curd, what you can do is dip a wooden spoon in the mixture, draw a line, and if the line stays where it is, it's ready to go. And you can also try it. At this point, if you prefer more of a fine curd, you can pass it through a sieve. We'll just spread this curd out, cover it, and pop it in the fridge to get nice and cool before we move on to the final stages of this donut. We're now going to be finishing off our apple curd. I will be folding through some of the crumble just to add a nice texture. So we'll have the curd and the crumble inside the donut and also some crumble on top. First, I'm going to be removing my curd from the tray into a bowl. So we're going to fold through about 80 grams of that crumble. Perfect. We're now going to transfer the curd to a piping bag. The easiest way to do this is to place your piping bag over a jug or a glass just to help you load it without needing a spare pair of hands. If you don't have a piping bag, a good tip is to use a Ziploc bag and cut the tip. So after all that preparation, we are finally in the last part of this lovely donut. I've got my curd ready to go in a piping bag, and I have my crumble for the garnish. In front of me, I've got my donuts. I'm going to be opening the top and the inside using a knife. You can either use a bread knife or a pair of scissors to do this. It's important not to go all the way through, otherwise your filling will drop out the base. So what you can do is hold the base of the donut, insert the knife in the top. You're going down about 2/3, and then you're just giving that knife a little bit of a swivel, going around in a circle, trying to open out the inside. And I'll just do that to all of my donuts. Right, we are now ready to pipe our donut. So I'm just going to snip the top of that piping bag. And then I'm going to insert the tip of the piping bag into the donut, and pushing from the top, you can see it's plumping up nicely all the way until the top. So as this is not a custard or creme patisserie, it does not pipe up exactly the same way. You're wanting to fill the donut on the inside, but we're not going to kind of go back and add a top. So just remember, when we're using a curd, you won't get a peak like some of the previous toppings we've done because we've been doing creme pats. We're going to now add the crumble on top. Wow, look at this. What a sight. You can see it grips to the curd really well. So we have now filled our donuts, and I do have something left. I have a bit of my crumble and a bit of the curd as well. Both of these can be reused in other ways, so please do not waste them. The crumb is really good on top of your overnight oats or your porridge, and likewise, that curd will be great on top of your porridge in the morning. So please keep them. The curd will stay fresh for 2 to 3 days in the fridge, and your crumb will be good for definitely a week. So put that in a sealed container and please use it on your breakfast. Well, there you have it, our beautiful apple crumble donuts. Please note that they will only be good for the next 2 days. Please try and eat as many as possible today. Donuts are typically best eaten the day that they are made, and if you want to, you can keep them overnight and enjoy them tomorrow. Remember to like, follow and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.